Some people might find having an antique radio in your kitchen a little silly. After all, it can't connect to Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. This radio, though, is more about sentiment than the fancy features. The pleasant memories of listening to it with your grandfather stream through your mind. Yes, it sounds a little different than the newer radios and speakers, but that is just part of the charm. And wait a moment. There's definitely something more than just static floating out of the aged speakers. The term disembodied words makes a lot more sense right now. And those sounds do not go with the music that's continuing to play underneath it. As the unease seeps in, you listen even more intently to try and figure out exactly what's going on. Okay, let's take a breath and think logically about this. You say to yourself, it's an old radio. It's probably just picking up some other frequency. How silly are you being? Getting all worked up over something so simple. With an eye roll, you walk over to try and change the channel. The music changes, and at first, everything's fine. The music is playing just the way it should. You relax, but only for a second, because then you hear it again. The same phantom voice. Your heart starts racing again as you frantically change through the stations. It doesn't make a difference, though. The voice is still there. And oh my God, you start to make out what it's saying, but it can't be. Only one person ever called you by that nickname, but your grandfather's been dead for 20 years. I'm Bree.
And I'm Christiana.
And tune on in, because
you're about to hear something strange.
So what do you think inspired the story?
Well, besides Alistair, also Bridgewater. That's where my brain goes.
I didn't think of Bridgewater. I could see you saying Alistair.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed the clock downstairs?
I don't think so.
Let's take a field trip really quick.
Oh, okay.
As much as Alistair is my favorite, be that what it will about myself, I just took Christiana on a little field trip. Downstairs there is I would say it's antique.
Yeah.
Radio that was my grandfather's.
With like a little clock set into it. It's very pretty.
Yep. So that's kind of what inspired that. My pop-up has not tried to talk to me through that radio, and I don't want to give. He has passed away several years ago. He died when I was like 5.
Yeah.
So more than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Not giving him any ideas.
Yes. Like, as long as you're chill, but stay peaceful.
As the name of this episode says, we're going to be talking about using technology to either communicate with spirits or like instances of spirits using technology to communicate to the living.
Yes.
In theory. What do you know about this?
I know that it is said to be possible, like with EVPs, picking it up on... But it basically isn't like an EVP machine, like you push a button and it cycles through frequencies to pick up.
That's a ghost box.
Oh, that's a ghost box. Okay, that's
an EVP is just a voice recording. We could technically, if a ghost was adventurous enough, we could get an EVP while recording this.
Oh.
Old school, you would see people with like tape recorders, but you can use your phone, you can use a computer.
Gotcha.
It's
okay.
Just an electronic voice recording.
Okay.
Phenomena, EVP.
So basically, I don't know much, is what we're getting here.
We'll talk about ghost boxes, don't worry.
Yes.
So before we hop into this too much, the sources, I'm going to shout them out. As always, we start with Wikipedia.
We love good old Wikipedia.
So there's a Wikipedia article that I looked at called Electronic Voice Phenomena, so EVP. Mm-hmm. There's an article from The Conversation, an article from The Atlantic, and NPR has an article titled The Story of a Milwaukee Bar's Haunted Radio.
Ooh.
All right, so let's do a little bit of a history dive because I know you love history.
I do love me some history.
Even though I talk about more spooky things, I also enjoy history.
Yeah.
So let's dive on in, take a little time machine ride. The spiritualist movement actually had a pretty big impact on today's spiritual communication. And to be completely honest, the spiritualist movement could be its own episode. The spiritual movement occurred sometime between like the 1840s and the 1940s.
Okay.
There's a lot to dig through. If you're interested, Aaron Mahnke has a really good show called Unobscured, and I think either the second or the third season is about the spiritualist movement. But when you think of like the old school seances and table knocking, that came out of there.
Okay. Also, go listen to Aaron Mahnke. Aaron Mahnke is phenomenal.
Yes, Laura is wonderful. Did you see they're doing a live show?
Ooh, no.
I'll send you the info on that. But Laura's good. Bridgewater is good.
Bridgewater's amazing.
And he has like a ton of different shows.
Yeah.
Through Grim and Mild.
Yes.
He's like one of the OG podcasters.
Yeah, I know. He goes back.
He'll go back.
We love him.
The spiritualist movement, in just a nutshell, this is a very oversimplification, was connected to the idea, beliefs that the spirit of those who had passed could be communicated to through mediums.
Okay.
So people.
Okay, that's where we get like the modern idea of a medium as okay.
I'm nodding like the people can hear me doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, so like think of like the Fox sisters. They were some of the first big mediums, and like the ectoplasm and pictures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That come from that movement as well. Things like photography were used to communicate and show evidence, parentheses, of the paranormal. Now, a lot of the stuff from the spiritualist movement was debunked.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, the table knocking, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of what started because like during that time, so let's think about the 1840s, right?
Yeah, that's a whole 1840s through 1940s is a whole century.
What's happening during that?
So much. I mean, there was the Civil War, Reconstruction, World War I happened.
So a lot of people had family members that passed. But during that time, right, a lot of people had lost brothers, fathers, even like daughters and mothers, depending on if a girl was doing something with the war effort.
Absolutely.
Or the woman. So a lot of people had lost like.
And like during the American Civil War, like just the civilian casualties. I want to do an episode about this, but like Sherman's March.
Oh yeah.
Who don't even get me started on Sherman. We'll do an episode about him. The
great loss of life, and people are mourning, and like you said, the civilian casualties, but also in the wars, the casualties were huge.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut in.
You're good.
They're like the World War One. Especially, I mean, not every war is tragic. There is no such thing as a not tragic war, but specifically, like with World War One, it comes to mind like it spawned the Dadaist movement, and it was the absolute destruction on another level.
Can you explain what that is for people who don't know?
Yeah, sorry, it's an artist's movement, and it is, in a summary, bizarre. I mean, there is like spoken word. There's Dadaist paintings that are just very, I guess maybe the word, it's not the surrealist movement, which is what you think of like, when you think of like Salvador Dali, the melting clocks, but it's just weird. They literally had an entire language that they made up that consisted of Dada. And it was just different. It's a crazy movement. It's very interesting.
Do an episode on that.
We could. I'd be happy to do an art history on, but it makes sense in that period. You know, it truly was warfare in a level that like humanity hadn't seen, and the destruction and like the gas attacks and everything, I feel would have probably like contributed to this movement of like, oh my God, like I hope my loved one that went through this is okay on the other side, because they died a horrendous death.
And I'm not pulling that from the research. That's just my opinion that probably affected it.
Oh, sure.
Time-wise. And it wasn't just like obscure people, and because I think Rochester, New York was one of the first places for the spiritualist movement.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm wrong, the internet will probably correct me. But like people that were known at the time were into it too, like Houdini was.
Oh yeah.
He was big in debunking it, but
yeah.
he had stuff going on. Edison, and I'm sure Tesla did too.
Mm-hmm.
Quote about Edison from Wikipedia.
Okay.
So popular were such ideas that Thomas Edison was asked in an interview with Scientific America to comment on the possibility of using his inventions to communicate with spirits. He replied that if spirits were only capable of subtle influences, a sensitive recording device would provide a better chance of spirit communication than table tipping and Ouija boards, the mediums employed at the time.
Okay.
That is saying basically is Edison's like, well, if spirits can talk, I am thinking that the sensitive equipment, so the electronics that him and Tesla were working on, would be more sensitive than like, because Ouija boards came from that time too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And the table tipping and table tapping.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of, it shows that it wasn't just obscure people in Rochester, New York.
Right. You know, with nothing else to do back in the deep woods. It was prominent people of the time.
Yep. Another person that was mentioned in this Wikipedia article was the American photographer Attila von Slauze. Something. I apologize if you are a descendant of his. I'm doing my best.
Szalay.
He was one of the first to try and capture the recording of voices of the deceased. He started his attempts in 1941 and believed he was successful in 1956. A for effort. Like, to do more than 10 years of continuing to try.
And he was a photographer? But
yes.
Okay.
I wonder if he was like a video photographer.
Oh, yeah, that maybe. Like a videographer.
Maybe. Either I wrote it wrong or Wikipedia had it wrong.
Well, I mean, he could be a photographer and still be using other recording devices. It just, that happened to be his profession.
That's true.
So
anyways, back to our good friend Attila, who I keep wanting to say the Hun. So he was successful when he switched from a 78 RPM record to a reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Reel-to-reel tape recorder. Yeah, I don't know either.
He changed how he was recording, and he got...
But he started with a record player. Like, or a record recorder.
You're still recording sound.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. That's so fun to think about. Like, that's so cool.
Do you know, like, do you remember? We weren't alive in the 70s. If you play the Led Zeppelin tape backwards, they'll be worshiping Satan or something.
Yes, you're a Satan worshiper.
Yeah. So
the Satanic. I have an episode about that too.
The Satanic Panic.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you ready to hear what some of the first supposed recordings included?
Yes.
This is G. Don't know who G is.
This is G. All right.
This next one, hot dog art. Apparently, they captured Mickey Mouse.
Like plot twist. It's just like, no, I'm making hot dog art.
Or
it's just an artist.
Or you know what, Disney would have been a thing. Maybe they caught. But maybe they caught
like people recording,
or a sound wave got picked up.
Mm-hmm.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all.
That's very kind. Thank you.
A lot of these could have just been random sound waves that were picked up.
Sure, picked up from other
things. Yeah, from radio waves.
Yeah.
So we're debunking before we even get there. In 1959, so we're out of the spiritualist movement at this point. People are just trying to catch ghosts as it continues.
Sure.
In 1959, Swedish painter and film director Friedrich Jorgensen.
Yes, I believe that'd be how they're pronounced.
Caught something he wasn't expecting. He was recording bird songs. Why not? You can get some nice peaceful sounds.
Yes.
Maybe he wanted sleep sounds.
Yeah.
And this is actually kind of sad. He believed he recorded the voices of his deceased father and deceased wife.
Oh.
So I don't know if that was just very upsetting and depressing for him, or if it was like cathartic.
Yeah, especially like with the bird sound in the background.
Yeah.
Like,
I get chills.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, any questions about the history of using devices to try and communicate with spirits?
I don't think so far.
Okay. So we're going to talk about ghost hunting technology. You already called some of these out, which is great. All right. So EVPs, we already kind of talked about. Those are electronic voice phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenon is a fun word to say. I was like, the phenomenon.
I was just saying, phenomenon.
Yeah. These are intentional or unintentional. So say someone's recording in a studio or recording whatever, a podcast.
Hey.
And they pick up other voices. Ghost hunters will use EVPs to try and communicate. So they'll ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
You wait a couple of seconds for an answer. You have no clue, though, if you're talking over a ghost.
Oh, okay, because you don't necessarily hear it, but you'll know when you listen back.
Yes.
Okay.
There's some other tools they use, too, though. So we're going to get into ghost hunting a little bit.
Okay.
As opposed to just...
trying to pick up.
But you're still using technology, so it still works.
Yeah.
The other thing is when you are ghost hunting, you want to tag everything. So here's a little bit of lore drop. When I was in high school, my high school had a ghost hunting club. I was in it for 3 years. I was the president for 2. If you want to know how weird of a teenager I was. But when you're ghost hunting, any sound you make, anything that even if you hear other people down the hall, you need to tag that because it might sound like something that you don't remember happening.
Okay. So if you were tagging that, be like, hey, that's someone down the hall.
Yeah.
Just say, okay.
Or, I sneeze, sorry.
Oh, okay. Just basic.
Or sometimes other sounds get picked up. So, like, let's say, sometimes our brains interpret what against us other sounds a little bit. So, a car goes by, making sure you know that that's a car, not a growl.
Right. Well,
Okay.
I mean, what happened with us when we first started, someone turned a car on, and I literally, like, looked over my shoulder, like, what was that?
It was a car. So that is EVPs. I'm going to say a very controversial statement and say ghost boxes are the most annoying ghost hunting tool on the face of the planet.
Oh.
So they're called a ghost box or a frank box or a spirit box, which spirit box is also a metal-ish alternative band that my husband listens to. Anyways, I don't know if that genre is right. Please don't come at me.
We know nothing.
So it is the idea that and I'm assuming someone named Frank invented them, and that's why they're sometimes called frank boxes.
I love it, though. Just a frank box.
Yes.
It gives you hard truths.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway.
So it picks up FM or AM, it takes up radio stations.
Okay.
And it rapidly filters through them.
Okay.
So you wouldn't get a full, like, you shouldn't even, the theory is you shouldn't even get like a full sentence from one frequency because it's shuffling through them rapidly.
Okay.
And the idea is that the ghost is somehow using the radio frequencies to make words. So you can get full sentences on a ghost box.
Right.
Do I believe it's not just a really weird technical coincidence?
Right. Well, it's kind of the thing of, what is it, like, if you get an unlimited amount of monkeys to play a piano, like, eventually they'll play whatever the song is by Chopin, or... You've not heard that?
No,
it's a weird... I forget where it came from, but I've heard people say it before. Like, you get an unlimited amount of, like, chimpanzees and an unlimited amount of pianos, and eventually they're going to play something.
They're going to play Chopin. Okay.
Which is, like...
Have you ever seen the videos on, like, Reels or whatever? And it's, like, cats falling on a piano and they're playing, like,
yes.
a masterpiece. Like,
yeah.
Once again, could it just be just a really big coincidence? Maybe.
Sure.
But all I know is when you're not getting sentences, you're just getting obnoxious sounds.
Right. I feel like I've heard... I don't tend to watch ghost hunting shows just because, like, I like to listen to spooky stuff. Like, I love listening to spooky podcasts and stories. It's something about having the visual with it that makes me, like, scared to sleep. All right. So I don't, but I've heard, like, people using them before in, like, little snippets, and it's just, like, it sounds like a really loud buzzing.
Yeah. It is. We're recording again. It's like the opposite of a calming noise.
Yes.
All right, so ghost box, laser grids. Have you ever heard of those being used?
Is that to detect movement, or is that... Okay, yeah. Well, maybe not laser grids, but I've seen people get, like, the motion sensor so that it makes a ding if it senses movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is, like, you actually have the laser grid pointed somewhere, and you can see if something interrupts it. Because the idea is that the ghost would somehow interrupt the...
Okay.
I don't know why we think that would happen, because ghosts aren't solid, but who am I to argue with this?
If something solid is interrupting your laser grid, maybe get out.
It's not
my theory.
We did use those when I was ghost. How we got some of this equipment is beyond me for a high school ghost hunting club. But once again,
I mean, I feel as though something like ghost hunting and communicating with the beyond and just, like, general fascination with beyond is something that is, it goes back, I mean, so far, and it's fascinating to so many people, maybe on different levels for different people, but it kind of makes sense that people would be drawn to, like, a ghost hunting club. They want to, you know what I mean? So it maybe got more funding, or...
Some of the first, like, reported hauntings are from ancient Greece.
Yeah.
And ancient Rome.
God, can you imagine?
And even some of our stories, like, religiously, are thousands of years old, and they're, like, they could be, I sound like ancient aliens. They could be seen through a certain lens as paranormal. I was also in high school, I graduated, I'll put this in there, in 2011. So that's, like, TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society, was big ghost hunters. That stuff was all huge during that time.
Right.
So it makes sense that we'd have a ghost hunting club in my high school.
Sure.
All right, and then EMF detectors, which is electronic magnetic field detectors, and K2. They also I think they were detecting fields. I don't know, electronic
Okay.
fields or magnetic fields.
Okay.
And they'd have little lights, and like they would light up if there was something that was interfering.
Huh. Okay.
Now,
it's like a Geiger counter.
Basically.
Huh.
So we'll get into some of the debunking stuff for some of these in a little bit, but those were all kind of the major tools.
Okay.
So let's talk about what are some non-spooky explanations for why the phenomena is caught on these different mediums. And by mediums, I mean like electronics, not people.
Mm-hmm.
So pareidolia, have you heard of that word before?
Okay, here's the thing. Yes, I have. And it's because I'm such a loser. So Streamily, the one site that does like prints, like
Never heard of this.
I'm literally such a loser, guys. It's not even funny. So Blake Roman, Amir Talai, and Erica Henningsen from Has Been,
Angel Dust, Alistair, and Charlie, respectively.
Yes. They all were on a Streamily together, which is a company that does like, you get like prints from the show and they'll sign them, and that's how it's like one of those like, it's like a real signature. But some of them, if I'm assuming you pay more, but they'll do like a live stream signing.
Oh.
Yeah, I want to do this. But apparently Blake Roman had that as a child. They were talking about their childhood fears as they're signing prints.
What do you think pareidolia means?
Well, I kind of know.
Go ahead.
Because it is like when you see shadows or not just shadows, but like you're taking meaning from a shape. So like if you could see a shadow on the wall and it'd be like, oh my gosh, that shadow is from it's like a person watching me. Or I would assume it also applies to like seeing shapes in clouds and like things like that.
Yeah, it's your brain misprocessing, because our brains are kind of programmed to look for other people and to hear sounds that are human-like, right?
Sure.
So you can have auditory and visual pareidolia.
Right.
So examples, like I said, if someone's looking up at the window of an old house and there's like, they see the clouds reflecting or trees, they might think they see a person.
Mm-hmm.
He had a fear of that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
When he was a little kid, he was like, I was scared the shadows were like watching me.
Oh, no, I know that would be scary as a kid. I agree.
Yeah. My mother had that too, actually, at one point. She had a shadow cast, I think, by a fan or something like that. Or I forget what the shadow was cast by, but it looked like a bad guy in a TV show that she watched.
That's scary.
And it was funny though, because she was like, Dad, and I think she actually called my grandpa to come in because she thought someone was in the room, and he turned the light on and it disappeared because it was shadow.
Or when that pile of laundry on your chair looks a lot like the Shadow Man. Visual pareidolia is what you normally hear about. Auditory is the same. Mm-hmm. So, for example, right, I get chronic migraines, and especially during a migraine, my brain gets confused. Mm-hmm. So, for the longest time, I thought I was hearing the neighbors talking at night, and my husband was like, "There's nothing. There's no people." Oh. It was the air conditioner. Oh. My brain was mistranslating it to hearing voices. Oh, man. Okay. But like any kind of that white noise, right? Mm-hmm. But that's a very common thing. Our brains like to make sense of things. So our brains will hear white noise and go, that's a voice. Right. So a lot of times when people hear very like murmured, indistinct voices, it's important to go, what other sounds were going on at the time? Mm-hmm. Is it possible with an audio pareidolia? And the other thing is EVPs are notorious for this. Mm-hmm. So like the one article compared the EVP to like an audio ink blot test. Okay. You hear what you think you hear. Or if you're watching it on TV, they put up subtitles for what they think it is. So your brain's going to hear that. Yeah. As opposed to if you like just listen and close your eyes, you might just hear like blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Or a different sound. So, like if you're watching ghost shows, maybe just watch them with your eyeballs closed. Maybe. And yeah, so a quote from our good friend Wikipedia about kind of how EVPs can also be about how they can be misheard. Sure. So EVPs are usually recorded by raising the noise floor, the electronic noise created by all electronic devices. In order to create white noise, when this noise is filtered, it can be made to produce noises that sound like speech. So that could also be a behind the scenes, because I hate if this is a bubble I'm bursting for someone. You really can't believe what they tell you on ghost shows because like, no one would watch it if they went into, like,
a dark, scary house and
Well,
like nothing happened the whole time.
Like, let's say they go into Eastern State Penitentiary
Yeah.
and they get nothing.
Yeah.
Or they go into, like, the Stanley Hotel and get nothing. Like,
or like the Omni Parker in Boston. Yeah, the Omni Parker. It's a restaurant and hotel, I believe, and it's like one of the most. From what I remember, it's like one of the most haunted hotels in Boston.
I thought you were just saying Amityville in a really weird way.
Oh, you're like, that's not how that's pronounced.
So the next non-spooky reason for the quote-unquote evidence found by these technologies is apophenia, which is when you're finding connection or meaning to things that aren't actually connected.
Okay. I feel like my brain does that like sometimes.
Well, it's very natural though, because we don't like not having those connections.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm gonna get a lot of hate. If you go to, so I'm not saying that all psychics are trying to pull one over your head, but cold readings are really easy to do.
Sure.
And they might say some really generic, really baseline things, and you'll put the dots together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, like, I have heard stories of people going to psychic readings that I 100% believe there was something.
Something was there.
I've heard instances of things that make me think that there are people that have gifts we can't understand.
Sure.
I'm not saying everyone that says they are able to be clairvoyant or psychic is, though.
Yeah.
Anyways, that
just
was...
like anyone.
Yeah.
Just like anyone in any profession.
Yeah. The thing to keep in mind is cold readings are super easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that
in your back pocket.
Other non-spooky things, interference, we talked about that already.
Mm-hmm.
If it's picking up a radio wave from something else. Issues with the tape used in older EVPs. Sometimes they reuse tapes.
Oh no!
So you're gonna get previous sounds if they're not wiped correctly.
If they're not,
Also, according to Wikipedia, and I don't understand this. That was me hitting the wall.
Take that, wall.
So according to Wikipedia, and do I understand this at all? No. Did I look into it further? Also no. Interference from meteors coming close to the Earth's atmosphere. I wonder if it makes certain sounds at certain frequencies that recorders can pick up.
Maybe.
I don't know.
That's so random. I love it.
Another reason for things not being as they seem are hoaxes.
Sure.
That does happen, right? People can say, hey, I recorded this ghost, but maybe it's just their friend, like 3 rooms down.
I saw that this is like I said earlier, I don't really watch ghost shows, but at one point there was one TV at one point, and they were down in New Orleans investigating after Katrina, and they were in like a bar, I think, that got like hit really hard with Katrina, and like had several victims were found, and there was a guy with a ghost box. And I'm going to try to describe this without using my hands, because it was just like, it was the most eye-rolling thing I've ever seen in my life. He was like, what killed you? And it was silent for a moment. And then he literally gestures with his hand and points at the box right before it says Katrina. And I forget what exactly he said, if it was like, what caused your death, or like what storm hit or whatever. But it was some question like that. He looked at the box, pointed at it, and then it talked. And then he tried to backpedal in an like, you know how like they cut between like interviews afterwards and then like the footage of them. It was in an interview afterwards. He was like, I just knew they were going to respond. I was like, sir, that was so bad.
It's like, okay, if you were actually a ghost who had unfortunately been a victim of Katrina, how would you have reacted to that? Because there's 2 ways that could have gone for me.
I would have been like, dumbass. What do you think?
So I just either wouldn't have answered, or I would have thrown the box at him.
Yes.
Like, those are the 2 options.
Just eat the table. Flip the table as well. Like, how rude.
Just like,
what storm do you think it was, idiot?
Oh my goodness. Like, I would, like, I'd either just not even give an answer or just...
So basically, once we're ghosts, we're going to be real salty.
I've told you my afterlife plans.
Yeah.
Should I say that?
I support it.
Okay, so when I eventually crossed the Rainbow Bridge myself, what I would like for my afterlife job to be, assuming there are afterlife jobs and an afterlife, I would like to be the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
There you go.
What's your afterlife goal?
I feel like I'm gonna turn into, like, a poltergeist. Like, not a particularly nasty poltergeist, just an absolute gremlin. Like a chaos gremlin.
I can just be snarky and you can be a poltergeist and just throw the stuff.
Yeah. I feel like that's what I would turn into. Whether I really think that's a good idea or not, I think that's what's gonna happen for me, honestly.
I might cut some of this out, but I think we're gonna be a team in the afterlife too.
I like it.
Oh my goodness.
Podcasting into the afterlife.
So, other things besides hoaxes, right? That's where we went off the rails.
Yeah.
Is sometimes people do catch live people and don't realize it.
Sure.
Because maybe they don't know someone else is there.
Yeah.
So remember how I kind of alluded to EMF detectors not always being very reliable? Mm-hmm. I say as I talk about catching ghosts that may or may not exist.
Yeah.
So a lot of things give off electronic and magnetic frequencies.
Sure.
Like a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't mean there's a ghost. It just means that there's something with a strong electricity.
Yeah. And you're picking up a noise from it, a frequency from it.
A frequency, yeah. Like certain appliances do.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like you always, like, you hear the fridge running, and then all of a
It's
sudden,
a
like,
ghost.
when it's all of a sudden, like, you get used to it,
Yeah.
and then when it turns off, it's like, oh, it's so quiet. Or, you know what I mean? If that makes any kind of sense. Or like the air conditioning running or something.
It's like plot twist. The refrigerator is haunted.
The fridge is haunted. That's there I am.
Okay. All right. So, do you have any thoughts or questions so far?
I don't think so.
So, we have very, very strongly alluded to media representations of. Actually, we just talked about Has Been Hotel, let's be honest.
Yeah.
My husband was like, this hyperfixation is getting pretty bad.
You know, it's same here. Here's a fun off the frickin' rails. My dentist and I are both, like, we're, like, all but the same age. I think he might be a little bit younger than me, actually. But we're both super nerds. Like, he's super into Good Omens. He's super into Has Been. Like, I just had an appointment. And he's like, so what's the newest nerdy thing? I said, Has Been Hotel. Have you watched it? And he was like, yes! And we were, like, just rocking on about. And he's into Harry Potter. He's into all of it. And I'm like, I literally love my dentist.
That makes sense if he's a millennial, though, because that's kind of...
Yeah.
That's great. That's the best kind of dentist.
But I told him, I was like, I'm super hyper fixated on it right now. And he was like, I love that word.
Yes, that's a good word for it. It's like...
It truly is.
Besides Has Been Hotel, are there any other media portrayals that you can think of besides my list? Or you can comment on my list. That's okay, too.
Let's see. I mean, I almost said Broadchurch. That's not it. Oh my gosh. Bridgewater. There actually is some reference to a medium in the first series of Broadchurch, but it's not, like, constantly.
It was so long ago, I don't remember.
That's a great show, by the way, friends. If you're into, like, murder mystery, it's like a police show done right, in my opinion.
David Tennant's in it.
I was gonna say, and it's David Tennant, so you can, and Olivia Colman, the Queen, so you can't go wrong.
And Arthur Darvill from
oh yeah, Paul.
Rory.
But yeah,
Doctor Who. Yeah.
Yes, he's Rory in Doctor Who. He's Paul in Broadchurch. Oh, Good Omens. Yes, definitely.
Do you want to talk about how that's connected to this?
Yeah, in Has Been, one of the main characters is literally Alistair. He's the radio demon, and he's constantly picking up on, like, radio frequencies. When he gets upset, you hear, like, a radio sound buzzing. His voice itself, he's got a transatlantic accent, but it's also got a radio filter over top of it.
It's like a static filter.
Yes.
He's committed to the bit.
He is.
He's like, yeah, and he was a radio host.
Not in real
life. He was a radio host in
his life before he became a demon.
And a serial killer, but that's not important right now.
Yeah.
But yes.
Good Omens.
Oh, you missed an important part of why he's the radio demon. Because he killed the other demons and broadcasted on his radio.
Oh, I was like, wait, where are you getting at? Yes, he literally kills other demons and topples overlords and broadcasts it on a radio show.
Not recently, though.
No, he hasn't done any of that in a while.
Not in the past 7 years. All right, and then we have Vox too.
Yeah, he's got his creepy eye.
He's a TV demon.
He's a TV demon. Yep.
Yeah.
Bridgewater, they actually do use an old radio. In this case, they're not trying.
That's right.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
I do want to give spoilers here. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched any of these shows or listened to Bridgewater. They use a radio to try and contact someone that is trapped in the liminal space between the Fey realm and the human realm. So the person is alive, but they're in this weird in-between space where they don't age. So it's strange. Go listen to Bridgewater. It's great.
It's really good. And then in Good Omens.
Madame Tracy.
Well, not only that, the whole thing of the other demons speaking.
Yeah.
That's what I thought of right away through the radio.
They speak to each other.
And that was Crowley's doing, of having communication through.
Yes. And they also, not as, well, no, they do in this show. They also use the TV to speak.
Yep. So some of the other well-known ones are, have you ever seen Poltergeist, any of those?
No, because again, it's like something about the visual, and I think the spooky soundtracks that come with movies make it almost like too much for me.
It's a good movie.
Is it?
There's like 4 of them, but spoiler if you didn't know this, one of the kid actors died of a very rare heart condition.
Oh,
it's very sad. That's what I think of when I think of the movies. But the movies are actually really good.
Okay.
They're horror movies, so I mean, if that's not your jam,
I might not be able to watch it.
And I'm sure there's a lot of other horror movies where things come through the radio. I just couldn't think of any.
Or through the TV.
TV.
What is that? Is it The Grudge or The Ring?
Oh, because you watch the video and then something happens in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or in Poltergeist. Oh, I might be able to watch that because it's an older horror movie. Because that's where the little girl sits and is there. Here. Isn't that her?
Yes.
Yeah. There was someone, whichever one with the lady that's crawling through the TV, there was someone that cosplayed that. There's a video of it.
I don't like that.
Oh, honestly, it's creepy. So good. They literally had the cosplayer had an actual TV stand on wheels that she could crawl in and out of. It was so cool. I loved it.
Yep, Curse Videotape is The Ring.
Okay.
There's also, isn't there VHS is a horror movie too?
VHS?
Yeah.
It's called? Oh.
Yeah.
I've never
There's
heard
a series
of
those.
So
I am fairly certain at some point something similar to technology and spirit stuff has happened in Supernatural, because everything happened in Supernatural once.
Yeah.
At least.
Supernatural
happened in Supernatural one time. Someone was telling me, and I don't know if this is true or not, that when they were doing the remake of the Amityville Horror, the radio kept playing Alive by Pearl Jam.
I feel like I vaguely remember hearing something like that, but I can't remember from where or what exactly.
Yeah, I don't know who told me that. I don't remember.
Yeah, we love it.
Yes. Okay. So I have a couple of I don't want to call them encounters, but I have a couple of experience stories.
Sure.
So are you ready to hear about the Milwaukee Haunted Bar?
I'm so excited to hear about the Milwaukee Haunted Bar.
Okay. So the bar was Layman's Brewing is the current name, but it's had different names in the past. So the radio in question is a Zenith model radio. I looked up what that is.
Mm-hmm.
If you want a visual, look it up as well. Wonderful listeners.
Yes.
So according to this article I read, that the radio is on no matter what. No matter what they do, it likes to turn itself back on.
Okay. So it's not they're necessarily their choice all the time. It's just, it's going to be on whether they want it to be or not.
That's how I took it.
Gotcha.
But it always plays one song.
Oh. That's irritating. It's the jukebox.
It's
the jukebox from Good Omens.
Yeah, and also the Bentley deciding to only play.
That's true too.
But it's this old slow dance song favored by a previous owner.
Oh.
I don't know about you, but I hyperfixate on songs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very much.
So the ghost, who is this person? Is thought to be Joe Saric, who was born in Yugoslavia in 1895, and he married his wife Barbara. They had 2 sons, and on the 1940 census, he's listed as the tavern proprietor who worked 80 hours a week. So like he was
week. Oh, brother.
So he was like
he worked himself
invested his heart and soul literally.
Oh.
So they think that it's him and his wife's like slow dance song. Which is actually kind of sweet.
That's really sweet. Yeah.
If it wasn't so scary to walk into a dark bar
and like hear that. Yes.
Yeah. So that was that story. That was kind of heartwarming.
I kind of love stories like that though, of because I've heard I think I actually mentioned this in another episode, the podcast Spooked by Snap Judgment. Go listen, it's great. There have been different people. There was a woman in Anchorage, Alaska, but she was working in a bar in Alaska that used to be a front in the times of like the old frontier gold mining. It was a saloon.
So like adult entertainment workers.
Yes. Yeah. It was adult entertainment. But I believe there was a woman that worked there that maybe I when I was listening, I half wondered if she might have committed suicide. But they described her as like dying at the establishment, and she still haunts the place. And they would talk, like this woman that worked there in modern times would like talk to her, and she would come in and be like, "Oh, good morning, so and so," and just like make sure like, "Okay, we're good. You don't need to pick on me." Never had issues with her. And there was also a woman that was at a hotel, and I don't remember this hotel. This was a different story. But the person that kind of like he would show people around the hotel. It was historic, and he would talk to her as well, and he would leave her roses in her room because she loved roses.
I have heard of this.
Have you heard of that?
Yes. Yeah. It just took a while to get through the fog of my brain.
Yeah, it's okay. But I kind of love stories like that where it's like it's a little scary to think about, but just like, okay, hi, like we're good. It just kind of like warms my heart a little bit. I don't know.
That is kind of nice though, because they're still like that very symbiotic.
Yeah, like there's respect there. It's a relationship. Or I'm not going to ignore you, but I need you to like, please don't push me off a ladder, or like,
that's fair.
You know, please don't haunt me. Like, please don't scare me.
Well, and there's like so many stories of haunted theaters, which makes sense. And I wonder if there's technology stuff that. Because I mean, it makes sense that theaters are haunted to me personally, because there's just so much energy and like passion that goes into
heart and soul that goes into art of any kind.
All right, are you ready for some of my own personal spooky stories?
Absolutely, yes.
So most of these don't come from when I was ghost hunting.
Okay.
I had a couple of like EVPs that weren't super suspicious when I was ghost hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't like when podcasts and stuff play EVPs, especially like demonic ones, because they scare the crap out of me.
Yeah.
I was listening, there was 2 podcasts that I listened to that both had like, at least one of them they started playing like EVPs from like an exorcism, and my phone shut off, and I'm like, nope.
Oh,
nope,
yeah.
Nope. And it probably was just like a weird coincidence, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, don't mess with it.
There was also a Believing the Bizarre episode, and I think, because they do possessions occasionally, but it was one of the big ones, and my radio disconnected from my car. But that happens sometimes because,
you know, technology.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But the timing was creepy. But
the timing is,
I didn't
what
like
makes
that.
it scary. Yeah.
All right, but this is not neither here nor there. So, do you remember the Xbox? I think it was Xbox Connects.
Yes.
Where it would pick up, have I never told you the story of our undergrad when we were playing that in Lower Lenfest?
I don't remember.
So, it was my roommates and a couple of our other friends, and we were down in like the lower level of one of the commons.
Yeah.
And
in the student center?
Yeah.
When the new student
center?
Yes,
the new student center, yep.
Okay.
So, where the big TV was.
Yes.
And one of my roommates, suite mates, whatever, had an Xbox Connects.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, Christiana is the dancer, I'm not. So I was just kind of sitting there and singing along, because that's what I do. And there was like 5 or 6 of us. They were playing, there was 2 of them playing Just Dance.
Okay.
And there were a bunch of us sitting like on the couch behind them. This comes important later, because you can see the people in the corner, basically, where it's picking it up with the screen.
Right.
And so they're playing, I don't know what song it was. And then this player 3 just...
Oh, I do remember you telling me this now.
Just joins.
Yeah.
And sweeps the floor with them. And this
is a former Orchestra member.
And this whole time, they're still dancing.
Oh my god.
This is such a fairy thing, actually.
That is a very fae, yeah.
So they're still dancing, and the people, those of us who are in the camera but aren't there, we're like waving our hands to make sure it's not picking, and we can see ourselves
in the
corner, but it's not picking us up.
Oh,
so
man.
this random player 3 or whatever just comes in, sweeps the floor, and then leaves after the song.
They dropped the mic.
They did. And we were just like, it never happened again.
Huh.
Like,
so weird.
Could it have been a malfunction? Maybe.
Sure. Especially if it was like doing everything like absolutely perfectly.
It wasn't, though.
Oh, okay.
It was missing some things.
Oh.
If I remember this correctly.
Ooh.
It was just weird. So that was one. And the other one that stands out to me, I know I've told this on the other podcast.
Yeah.
That senior year when we had the talent show thing.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely told this on another podcast.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I was one of the only times I have accompanied myself live.
Mm-hmm.
I was practicing it, and that wing of the building is just creepy AF.
We went to a creepy college.
We did, actually.
Like, it's a nice college. It's a lovely school, but it's just freaking creepy.
On many levels.
Yes.
And
this is coming from me, who I've never experienced anything, knock on my head here. And I'm still going to tell you, it's a creepy college.
I had a lot of
I know you did.
Yeah. I went looking for them, too, let's be fair.
Yeah.
I never had the ghost follow me across the green, though.
Oh.
You never heard about this?
No.
That the ghost would follow, like, blondes with blue eyes across... Yeah. Are your eyes blue? Are your eyes blue?
Yes, they're like a gray blue. Yeah.
But it would follow, like... It was supposed to be, like, the ghost of a Civil War soldier or something.
Oh, that's upsetting.
Anyway, so I'm practicing in creepy college, but...
Layered
hall, and it's one of the older parts of the college.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole college is old, let's be real.
Yeah.
Except for, like, the science center. The whole college is pretty old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was practicing the song I was singing and playing, and my now husband was on the phone on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, I was like, how did that sound? And I heard this woman's voice say, like, that was great. And I was like, is your mom there? And he's like, no. I'm like, did you hear that? And he's like, no. And I believe there wasn't another woman there. We've been married going on 8 years.
Yeah.
And we've been together 12 going on 13 years at this, like, now.
Yeah.
So I believe there wasn't another.
Yeah. Okay, we can cut this out. Can you just imagine, like, if there was another woman there, like, how stupid would she be? Shut up!
Yeah.
Anyway.
But that was my other...
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story, too.
Because, like, a lot of people, like, EVP experiences aren't that hard to find, but, like, those kinds are a little more rare.
Sure.
All right, so we've kind of wrapped up the meat of this, and it went all kinds of places.
It was fun. It was a fun episode.
So, what are your thoughts?
EVPs are interesting. Ghostly voices are interesting. Like I said before, like, I don't know exactly what I believe with everything. I do think there is stuff out there that we don't understand. I believe in it enough not to mess around with it. And I've never had an experience, but I don't want to.
Yeah, put that one out to the universe. I don't want one.
I would prefer not to.
All right.
Maybe unless it was my horse. I'll put that into the universe. If it were my horse, I'd be like, okay, I want my Merlin back. It's got real sad.
I have a feeling that the more we dive into this stuff, you're going to have something happen to you.
I've had that thought too. I'm like, oh.
Just some thoughts before we get into our ending questions. So I really do like the idea of loved ones never really leaving us.
Yeah.
Granted, they're not, like, stuck here and unhappy about it.
Sure.
It's nice to have the idea that you know people aren't really gone.
Mm-hmm.
However, I will put it out there, if you couldn't tell during the episode, I'm very skeptical of a lot of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I believe in the paranormal? I believe that there are things we can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
Have I experienced some things that are really hard to explain? Yes. But I'm very skeptical of things like EVPs, especially if I'm not the one that took them or I don't know the person that took them.
Yeah.
Like, if you took one, if, like, you know, a friend of ours that I trust got something.
It'd be a little more like, oh, okay, this is maybe more believable than like a Redditor or something. No,
like a Redditor.
Redditors. You know?
Does that mean that I wouldn't listen to it very critically to make sure it's real? I probably... depending on the person, I might tell them, like, hey, this is this interference.
Yeah. Like, if it were like me, I feel like if I came to you with something that was, like, weird, that's weird in and of itself, because, again, like, I am who I am. But I would be like, this isn't real, is it? This isn't real, is it?
Please
tell me this is not real!
Please debunk this. Yeah. But I'm very, very... I've only ever caught a couple that were extremely clear and extremely relevant to the question asked.
Mm-hmm.
And one was terrifying.
Ugh.
The house isn't even there anymore. But there was one that we got, and I don't even like to think about it. It was that dark. And we got one at Wilson that was, we had asked, we were in Patterson, which is a creepy room without ghosts being in it. There's pictures of all the past presidents and stuff of the college. We had asked it, is there anything you want to say? And we got a really firm male no. And there were no men with us. Go ahead.
Oh man, that place is scary. So my story of this Patterson lounge is it's not particularly like haunting related, I don't think. But it was I think it would have been my freshman year at Wilson when because I was still like.
Do you want to keep the college name in?
Oh, sorry. No.
Well, we're already saying the name of all of the buildings.
Yeah. Do you think it matters?
I don't care.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with it then.
We went to Wilson College in case you didn't catch that part.
Check out Wilson College.
Lots of ghosts.
Yeah. I'm gonna say something.
No, keep on.
Go even.
Oh.
You're like, I'm gonna fight you.
Oh, I have my odds hat still in the other room.
You do. I know. I still have my dink.
We should bring them in here.
We should. That'd be fun. Anyway,
I'll forgive you. Keep going. Even if your year is not the better one, keep going.
Sorry about it.
If there's any Wilson people listening, tell us your year, and if you're an odd, you're better. Just kidding.
Dang. Okay.
No. Okay. If you're an even, you're okay too.
I guess you're fine.
Christiana might like you better, but I still like you. You're okay. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
This podcast we've gone off the rails. No, I'm sitting in Patterson Lounge because there was a piano in there, and I had my senior year of high school. I took a beginner piano class, and I was still trying to like keep up with it, and I kind of fell off the wagon as the years went on. But that was a good place to practice because there wasn't anyone around. Because
everyone was too freaked out by it.
I mean, fair, yes.
I would practice there too for the same reason.
Yeah, because I don't like practicing in front of people. I get so stressed out. It was when Hurricane Sandy hit. It was like right before the rain started coming down really hard, like before the flooding happened. And I was sitting in there. It's dark outside, like cloudy dark. It was like that pre-storm creepy feel. I'm sitting there playing away, minding my own business. I stopped to like look at my music closer or something, and all of a sudden I noticed how freaking quiet it was. And I just kind of looked up because I had been like into it. Like I was not paying attention to anything around me. I look around, see how dark it is outside. It's eerily silent. I'm looking around at all these eyeballs from these portraits staring at me. I look back at my music and was like, Nope. I booked it out and I was like, absolutely not.
That room was creepy.
It's scary.
We never did EVPs in that room after.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But it was like you felt like you were being stared at.
Yes. It was like beyond just like the room itself, like all those portraits.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever live in Riddle?
No. I visited Riddle, but I've never lived there.
I lived there my senior year. And I had other people have the same thing. Like when you would walk into the parlor, you always felt like there were eyes on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I learned later, but that's where the like matron or whatever would meet. Like Wilson's a very old school, well, American standards, anyways.
Yeah.
And when back ye olden years, right? Mm-hmm. When courtiers would come, that's where they were supervised or whatever the thing was. Like she would
have
hang
like
out,
a chaperone.
Chaperone, there we go. Like there was that little like computer lounge. That's kind of the I think that was the chaperone's room.
Oh my gosh.
So that lounge was so creepy.
Yeah.
But like afterwards I was like, oh.
Like, well.
No, but my husband is a ghost report. My husband and I have dated since college, if you haven't
picked up on that.
Yeah. So kind of back to the actual wrap-up questions. My favorite part about this whole thing was like diving into like the spiritualist roots.
Yeah, that's I want to listen to that obscure episode, unobscured episode. That sounds like really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. It's a whole season.
Yeah.
All right, ready for the questions?
I'm ready. So, what drew you to this topic?
I just thought it'd be interesting to look more deeply at it since so many people who ghost hunt use EVPs. It's a very common tool, so I'm like, let's dive a little deeper.
Sure.
And it's spooky.
Did this episode change your view on the topic at all?
Not really. I knew a good amount beforehand. Like I said earlier, having more insight about like how this even came about was kind of interesting and cool.
Mm-hmm. And then what was the strangest part of this topic for you?
So I already knew about pareidolia, but I think the strangest thing is that it exists, that our brains are so wired to see and hear certain things that is so strong that it makes us do that. And also, kind of the sad thing is people take advantage of that in ghost hunting shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's true though. Like it is like just that we're programmed that way as humans. It's strange and interesting.
It is, yes. All right, so info on where to find us. So you can find us on Instagram. More info on that to come.
Yes.
You can find us on Instagram. You can comment directly on each Spotify episode. You can tell us what you think. We're on Apple too, so you can leave reviews of the show in general. Please be nice.
Yes. We're doing our best. We know we go on a lot of rants. It's okay.
That's usually a little less after I added them.
Yeah. You can also send us a Gmail at somethingstrangepod number 24. So like numeral 24 at gmail.com. Well, strangers, it is time for us to part ways.
Until we meet again, keep an ear out for ghostly voices.
We'll be back again soon with another
Something Strange.